Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co., and this is 14 games that I regret going all in on. That may or may not actually be the title of the video, I don't entirely know, because technically, strictly speaking, these aren't 14 games that I regret going all in on. These are 14 games I shouldn't have gone all in on, which is a slight distinction. Many of these games on the table, including the one we'll be starting with today, Vindication, I absolutely do not regret. But there's a fine line between regret and saying you think you shouldn't have gone all in on. This is a continuation of the last video. The last video I did was 10 Kickstarter games that I absolutely feel were totally worth going all in on. These are going to be the 14 that I feel weren't. Why 14? Why not 10? Because, well, I had more than 10. Why not 15? I couldn't get to 15. I could only get to 14 from looking around my collection, checking my shelves, figuring it all out. And again, that title, I don't know what I'm going to title the video. The problem is the title, Regret, more quickly illustrates the point, even though it's not technically accurate. So I guess the first minute of this video is explaining why the title may or may not be wrong, depending on the title I went with. But let's go ahead and dive into this video. There are 14 games here that I don't feel I should have gone all in on. That's the technical determination here. And there's a bunch of things to get into before we dive through this list. The first is that this does not include games that I didn't like and didn't keep. If I didn't like the game, I don't really care. I moved on from it. It's already not part of the conversation. This is almost a specific subcategory of that. These are games I do like. These are games I do want. I just don't feel I need all the content for those games, or at least more specifically, I don't feel I'm benefiting from all the content for these games. And I'll also say, because I got so many comments in the last video that I do want to respond to as many as possible, that between this video, whatever comments I get in this video, and whatever comments I got in the last video, this week's live stream on Wednesday, I'm going to go ahead and talk about all the comments. So if you have questions about, what about this game? What about that game? This game's missing. Why is this game here? Why is that game there? If you have any questions whatsoever, I'll try to go through as many as possible in my live stream on Wednesday. So feel free to stop by for that. And if you're watching this in the far distant future, I'll link to that as well, so you can go ahead and check out the community conversation around these games and all that. Why am I doing this video, or this list, or the second video? Because I think it's an interesting conversation about which games, at least for me, which games were worth all the content and not, even within the subcategory of games that I like. Both these videos are games that I like. Both these videos are games that I really enjoy, want in my collection. I'm getting a lot out of them. And the question is, which of them am I actually benefiting from all the stuff I'm getting, and which ones, well, which ones not so much? And with all of that out of the way, this is a lengthy intro, but welcome to Board Game Co. We do things like that on this channel. But starting off the bat, with the one on the table, the biggest box here, only because, by the way, I tried always choosing the smaller boxes where I had the opportunity. There are bigger boxes here. But Vindication over here from Orange Nebula is a fantastic game. It is one of my favorite games of all time. To be very, very clear, I think this game is amazing. It's also part of why there are a bunch of games here where I can't possibly use the word regret, because I do want all of this. I do want all of this game. I want every single card that I have over here for this game, but ultimately, I don't benefit from it. I don't even come close to benefiting from it. In fact, the base game of Vindication comes with a bunch of modules to mix up the experience, to give you different ways to play the game, and I haven't played with all of those. I haven't even played the full base game of Vindication, and yet I have the leaders, I have the Chronicles, I have the big box, I have half dozen promos, I have all this stuff for the game in a way that I'm not utilizing or benefiting from. Despite being one of my favorite games of all time, there's just so much to it, and I don't play it enough. I play it a decent amount, but I don't play it enough to feel the need for it. The base game of Vindication is so robust in the amount of content it gives you and the amount of gameplay it gives you that it doesn't matter how many times I play the game, occasionally I dabble with a new module from the base game. Now make no mistake, I do want to play Leaders, I want to play Chronicles, I want to play through all the various expansions, I do want to at some point, so I have the ambition, and I have no regrets, but I've had this in my collection for years now, and it doesn't seem to matter what I do, they're putting out content for this game far faster than I'm able to consume it. I'm also going to use this opportunity, and apologies in advance for this, but I'm also going to use this opportunity for something I've had in my collection for a bit. Something I've had over here for a while is I've had a bunch of promo cards for me, for the channel, from Orange Nebula, that I've been meaning to actually sell over here, and I keep forgetting to do with them, so we're going to go ahead and do that briefly. Basically, if you want either of these promo cards over here, and we have these guys over here, if you want Alexei's Cube of Unholding, or if you want Alexei the Unyielding, if you want either of these promo cards, if you just go ahead and I'll include descriptions, I'll include information down below as far as how you can go ahead and get your hands on these if you do want these. I will be selling them on the channel. I have a whole bunch of them. Orange Nebula might be selling them as well at some point. I don't know exactly. But if you want either of these, and by the way, that is me over there. Like, you have to really, really zoom in. But that's a tiny, I swear it's a tiny little guy, it's a tiny little me, but if you look closely enough, you can see it. And I I don't say that sentence often. But the reason for that, by the way, in case you're wondering, the reason for that is my own rules for promo cards is I don't mind being a promo card, but if you can tell that I'm in a game without trying really hard, then I don't like that. I want it to be so you have to really work to figure out the reference to me, because I don't like it. On a personal note, when it comes to promo cards, I don't like it when I'm looking at a game and my entire immersion is ruined because that's obviously insert content creator, designer, whoever it is in the space. So I personally prefer it when you can't easily tell. So when they talk to me about putting them in a game, I was like, I'll do like Alexei instead of Alex, and will throw me deep into the background so you can barely tell. So that's that. But with that, we're going to go through the rest of these, and there is no specific list. I'm going to put this on the floor, by the way, because it takes up too much table space. But I'm going to go through these. There's no specific order as there was last time, just because there are too many boxes as it is on the table. But I'll start with number 13, one that people asked about in the last video, which is Chronicles of Drunagor. Somebody said, hey, I have my entire Apocalypse pledge coming, and it makes me a little nervous that Chronicles of Drunagor is not in the last video, and therefore it must be in this video. First of all, that logic does not hold true across the board. There are many things people thought would be in this video that aren't. That's a longer conversation as to why they're not in either video. But in the case of Chronicles of Drunagor, it's true. I think Chronicles of Drunagor is a fantastic game, but the sheer amount of content they give you for a game that, unless you're going through that entire experience multiple times, you're just not going to benefit from the amount of content they have. And plug and play content, a big thing I focused on in the last video is the nature of how plug and play content often gets I see more out of plug and play content than I do out of expansion content. And Drunagor has a mix of both because of the wide amount of characters they give you. The problem is, if it's a large campaign game, if you're going for a full character arc cycle, I'm just not going to benefit from plug and play content in that scenario. It's not like, it's not like Gloomhaven, in which the characters are slowly, you're utilizing multiple characters across a gameplay experience. You're not getting that same level of just seeing everything the game has to offer. And so as much as I do enjoy Chronicles of Drunagor, I think that there's just too much content for the game, at least based on the way I'm going to go through it. Obviously, the very nature of these lists, to a certain extent, is personal. If there's a game that I've gone through all the content, well, it's not going to be on this list, even though it might be different for you. But yeah, Chronicles of Drunagor, a fantastic dungeon crawler game, a game that I have all the original game, I have all of Apocalypse coming, and I just don't think that I need or will benefit from all of that content. I like the game, but there's a difference between liking the game and do you like a game enough that it takes up 4 Calyx cubbies on your shelf. And Chronicles of Drunagor, I mean, those boxes are not the smallest. Then we have over here Massive Darkness, which this one I've debated because I like Massive Darkness a lot, and I play through a lot, and it is plug and play content in the sense that I'm benefiting a lot from the various characters you have in the game. But they also have expansion-based content, and the expansion-based content I'm not benefiting from quite as much in the experience. For me, I find that the core gameplay of Massive Darkness I love. I think it's an excellent game. I have all of the full all-in for Season 2, but worse than that, I have the full all-in for Season 1. And I actually have utilized, if you have the cards, you mix them up, I've actually utilized the mobs from Season 1 as I've played through the game. I have a little box, I have a whole setup, it works, it's a mess, but it works as far as giving me the gameplay experience of, well, Massive Darkness. But again, I have so much content. I have it condensed into like 4 full boxes of whatever, and when I say condensed, I mean condensed. I've done everything I can to lower the physical shelf space that the game takes up, and there's just too much of it. I kind of want to get rid of the Season 1 content, but I also like the variety of characters and the variety of mobs, and so even though the variety is not that deep of a variety, it's not actually as deep as I would like because they're literally trying to fill stats in order to give you these cards to play with and these monsters to play with. Massive Darkness is a great game, but I think the core box and an expansion or two are likely more than enough for the average person to experience what that game has to offer. Then we have Marvel Dice Stone over here, or Dice Stone in general I should be more specific on. And Dice Stone is an interesting one, because Dice Stone does very much fall into the modular category that I talked about, that plug-and-play aspect in terms of being able to utilize any character from any set and being able to dive into it. The reason I find that Marvel Dice Stone doesn't work as much for me, the reason it's on this list as a game that I don't feel I should have, and again, when I say should have, I have Marvel Dice Stone, I have Marvel X-Men coming, I have Season 1, I have Season 2, I have Santa vs. Krampus, I have Deadpool, I have all 35 characters, and I just don't think that I need that. And there's a combination of 2 factors that lead into why I think it's overkill on Marvel Dice Stone. The first factor is the fact that the characters, in my opinion, aren't different enough across the spectrum of those 35 characters. It's Yahtzee dice rolling, but if you look at every character's first ability, it's basically a straight. It's not straight, it's the same symbol. If you look at other characters, they have a straight somewhere, they have a full house somewhere, they have these same symbols, and not enough differentiation in terms of how damage works across the arc of these characters. Now make no mistake, Some of them are more interesting than others. You want to sit there and play as a Black Widow. She has all these equipment working for her in a fun little way. You want to sit there and play as Thor with chucking his hammer back and forth. There's all these characters and these nuances to them. But across those 35, you can probably condense it to half of those characters and still get a wide feeling of how these characters all play and enjoy them. So the first reason is that they're not different enough across 35 to justify having 35 characters. And the second, because if you're sitting there saying, well, Alex, what about Marvel United? Aren't there like a bajillion Marvel United characters? And there's no way that they're more distinguished than a Marvel Dice Stone over here. Well, you're not wrong. But that's where you go into the second reason, which is the shelf space these games take up. I can have all my Marvel United heroes in like a box, in a single small box that's the size of this. But every single one of these battle chests, there's going to be 4 of these battle chests. The condensability of those heroes isn't really relevant here. So for me, I can entertain the fact that, sure, I'll play as, I don't know, I have no clue who the characters are. I'll play as 2 characters in Marvel United, and even though they're the same, I just get the enjoyment of playing different characters from the universe, even though they basically feel the same as I play through them, because they take up so little extra space compared with the amount of shelf space that Marvel Dice Stone characters take up. And so for this one, despite the fact that I want it all, it's just, I don't think I need it all. Then we have Too Many Bones, Unbreakable. Along with, or Too Many Bones in general, I should say. And along with Vindication, this is one of those games that I can't possibly use the word regret for a system this amazing. And yes, Too Many Bones is also plug-and-play content. Each single gear lock bringing its own mastery to the table, its own incredibly intricate aspect of how they function and work. And the complaint here is the exact opposite of Marvel Dice Stone. These characters are too complicated. These characters in Too Many Bones are so unique, so interesting and different in how they operate that each character is practically a full game to learn and understand on its own. And the problem with that is it means that I haven't played. I love this game. It's in my top 10. It will be in my top 10 for a long time, I have to assume. And it's a game that I've played maybe 6 different characters in the game. Because every single time I play, I could play the game I love with a character who I still haven't seen everything, or I could sit down and learn a homework assignment of an entirely new character, which granted I want to do, but it's always a little harder because that barrier to entry of will I actually sit down and table and play those games. And so for me, I am happy that I have every single expansion I possibly can for Unbreakable. I'm happy I do. But have I played with most of the content? Despite being plug and play, I haven't. This is one of those games where if you are getting Too Many Bones, I recommend getting a core set, maybe a character pack or 2, and then as you play through it, go ahead and get more. Keep in mind, this is very much a do as I say, not as I do kind of situation, because I love the game and I don't care and I will have it all. It doesn't matter if they put out a new character tomorrow, I'll buy that new character. It's one of my favorite games of all time, how could I not? But also, it is being irresponsible, and it is sacrificing logic for something that I love, which is a sacrifice I'm willing to make, but only on games that I love to a large extent, which is why some of the games over here on this list are some of my favorite games, despite being in a list of me telling you I probably shouldn't have all the content. But that's the difference between probably shouldn't have versus still do. So that's going to be Too Many Bones, Unbreakable. Another game where I'm definitely not benefiting from all of the content, but another game where I don't care, I'm still going to have it all. Then we have over here Assassin's Creed. And this one does possibly move into the realm of actually regret. Again, regret's a loose term, but this is where I don't have the same level of love for Assassin's Creed. And make no mistake, I love the game. I give it a 4.5 out of 5, and I stand by that. This is an amazing experience. Assassin's Creed is incredible. I think the difference for Assassin's Creed is I'm less excited about the expansion content. When I talk about Too Many Bones, every single, or on Vindication, wherever it down there on the floor, and when I talk about those games, every single amount of content it has, whether or not I've played it, I'm excited for. But I can't say I have the same level of excitement for Assassin's Creed of playing through some of the expansion content. Now, the base game box, the giant, miniature, oversized black box, which I specifically don't have here so I can manage this table as I go through this video, that's a lot of content, but I like it, I'm excited for it. What I have played, I've enjoyed. What I haven't played, I will get to. But over here, for Assassin's Creed, the expansion content, maybe I'll get to. I think it's an excellent game, make no mistake, and so there is that in my head, but also it's a lot of game anyway. And like I don't know if I need to dive into like, different futuristic settings or different awesome I don't know. I'm less excited. It's a great game. I highly recommend it, especially because they have that cheaper version you can get your hands on nowadays. So I highly recommend giving it a shot. It's just a fantastic gameplay experience. But I don't need all of it. I'm not going to play all of it. Then we have another one that kind of breaks the plug-and-play rule. I know, by the way, we have a bunch of games today that break the plug-and-play rule. But we have Rum Bones, Inquisition. Another Come On game. We had a lot of comments in the last video talking about how half this list is Come On. Well, don't worry, half this list is Come On too. That's not true, that's a lie. 3 of these games are Come On games. 3 of them, which means, yes, there is one more coming. One more? one more. There's one more game coming from Come On this list. So we have a bunch of Come On titles across the board. They put out a lot of games that are massive all-ins, and so inherently there's going to be a lot in the camp that I am very happy, and a lot in the camp that I probably shouldn't have, but I'm still a little happy about. But over here we have Rum Bones Inquisition. This does very much follow the plug-and-play module. In fact, they have so many heroes for this game, and there's tons of content and tons of clans and factions and all this stuff. And again, it kind of falls into the category of just too much. I have 2 full Kallax cubbies full of this, and unlike Marvel United, where it's very easy to table, playing through a game of Rum and Bones is a 2-hour-long experience where you experience 3 heroes. When I play through Marvel United, I can play the game for half an hour and experience 4 heroes. So the amount of content you're experiencing relative to playtime, that's kind of the conversation that makes this one fall into the, okay, it's overkill, compared with Marvel United, where I will fight to my dying breath that most of it was worth getting. And so for me, Rum and Bones is just, I have everything from Season 1, I have everything from Season 2, I'm pretty sure I have everything. I hunted down like that last expansion pack, the Inquisition expansion pack. I got the last thing I was missing a while ago, but I think it's an incredible experience and a great game. One of those games that isn't talked about enough in my opinion, but when I sit down and when I play it, this to me is the best MOBA game I've played. It doesn't matter if it's Cloud Spire, it doesn't matter if it's Sky Tier or Guards of Atlantis. For me, Rum and Bones is still the one that gives me the best experience when I get it to the table, which isn't often enough, but when I do, it is hands down the best experience as far as just the fun of upgrading characters, of heading head to head as you march your little minions across the ships trying to take down your opponents. It is so much fun. And I've played like 4% of the content I have across the past 3 years, so I don't think I'm going to be able to utilize all of it. The selection is nice, make no mistake. The ability to pick is nice, but I don't need that. That's just kind of extra. Which brings us to the next chip theory games on the table over here, which is going to be Burncycle over here. Burncycle, this is going to be the Brass Bags box, because again, I tried choosing smaller boxes for this over here, but this is a game that gives you a ton of content, and they have the next campaign as well, which gave you even more content for the game, more scenarios, more packs, more robots, more everything, and again, it falls into that chip theory, that too many bones category, where you're just not going to play through all of this. Yes, it's plug and play. Plug and play is good. Plug and play means it's easier to see more of the experience, but the longer and more complicated it is, the amount of playtime you get of that experience relative to the amount of content. I think Burncycle is an incredible chip theory game. It's incredible. I think it's amazing. I love playing this. It is so much fun to go through the individual floors you're playing as, the individual bots, your command module, flipping back and forth between which bots you use as the command module versus use as your own. There's so much powers and abilities and intricacies and ability to min-max within the system. I think it's fantastic. I'm never going to play through all the content. I just can't imagine it happening. But again, I love the system. I love the choice. I like being able to look at the bot ability and be like, ooh, this guy gets to move all the way across the hallway with just 2 action points. That's fun. Let's do that one. This one gets to go ahead and just smash your head in with, because it's a sniper bot. Like that's fun. I've enjoyed reading the bot abilities in order to play the game, even if I don't play as all of them all the time. The next one is our only retail selection on the list. And this retail selection is Marvel Champions, which, to my credit, I have finally stopped buying new stuff for this game. Yes, this is in Shrink. I have 4 expansions in Shrink, in addition to the expansions that I have completely crammed within my inserts for this game. I have 2 giant One Sharp Joe containers full of cards for this, and I was getting every single expansion for a while, and eventually I realized that for every 2 expansions I bought, I was playing the game once. And again, this is another plug-and-play exception, and again, there's an explanation and a reason why. This game is plug-and-play content. Mix together whatever you want, build your deck, utilize whatever. I go ahead and mix this in. I don't have to experience the campaign content. I don't have to play through that. I can just benefit from the extra cards and mix them in and build new ways to be able to build these decks and take down stuff. To utilize more abilities and combinations and hero decks to be able to have more fun, except for one small problem. Every time you play this plug-and-play game, you're either utilizing a pre-built hero deck that you've had from last time or someone's recommended, in which case you don't need all these extra cards, or you're building a new one, in which case every single play experience has that homework assignment of I'm going to sit down and build a deck. And you can do it quickly. If you do it set up right, and I do have it set up in a good way, I can sit down and put together a deck and plan it all out and have a good deck that will last me against a decent amount of bosses in order to try to go ahead and drive home the victory. And then you have to iterate on that deck building in order to actually be able to take down some of the harder challenges in the game. But there's just so much content, and it has that homework assignment aspect to being able to sit down and table and play it, which is why it's an incredible experience, and one that I'm not yet getting rid of. In general, for the record, I kind of have a mental rule where if I love a game and I stop buying expansions for it, or not even love a game, if I don't buy an expansion for a game without knowing if the expansion is good, just my interest in the game, I usually kind of put it into a ballpark. Well, if I'm not excited enough about you to want the additional content, then I'm just not excited enough about you, and I get rid of them. That is a thing I go through. It's not always logical. There's reasons for it, though. And in the case of Marvel Champions, though, despite the fact that I finally stopped buying those expansions, the game's not going anywhere, at least not yet. I make no guarantees down the road, by the way. I make no guarantees at all. The next one over here is going to be, oh boy, this is getting harder and harder to manage. Over here, we have Monster Hunter World from Steam Forge Games. Because I have all of Season 1. I have all of the Iceborne coming my way. I like this game. Genuinely, I do. I think it's a good time. I think it's easy to play. It's a lot of fun to chase down the beast, to hunt them down, to try to predict their cards as they attack you, to learn their movement patterns as you go through a campaign, as you figure out how to improve your experience as you go through this. It's a phenomenally good game. It's really fun. I think a single core box over here, I think is enough for most people to be able to experience and enjoy this. Because as much as I do enjoy this, there's a difference between Too Many Bones, where I sit and look at this game and I'm like, I will never get rid of you. So maybe one day when I'm 70 and finally have more time to do what I want, and you have all finally stopped watching, maybe then I'll play through all the content. But I don't like Monster Hunter World that much. I like this game, I do, but I don't like it enough to go through all of the content. I don't think I do. I have so many other games competing for my attention, and so many games coming out every single year that are competing for your attention. And so for me, this one is just, it's good. I like it, but a single core box from Iceborne, a single core box from the original game set will probably give you more than enough content to be able to enjoy it without feeling the need to go all in it, and that's going to be Monster Hunter World. But then from there, we have, and this one's time sensitive or relevant, we have Nemesis. See, I like Nemesis. I think Nemesis is excellent sometimes. I've played base game Nemesis and it has given me amazing experiences and mixed experiences. I have not yet played Lockdown. I have played Retaliation. I enjoyed that one a lot as well. I don't need 3 core sets of Nemesis. And by the way, I'll actually be getting rid of some of them. This is one of them where I will not be keeping all of Nemesis. I want to keep one set. I haven't decided which one though, and I still have to play Lockdown. I actually have this problem a bit with Lords of Hellas and Lords of Ragnarok. There are reasons why those are not on this list today, or the last list either for that matter. It's still trying to evaluate. And one of the categories that I've kind of excluded from this list is games I'm still deciding where they are for me. Games like Cloudspire and The Witcher and Lords of Ragnarok. Games that I'm still deciding if I even want them in my collection. Well, in the case of The Witcher, I know I want it in my collection. I just don't know if I'm going to go through all the content or not. But either way, Nemesis over here is a game that you just don't need 3 giant core sets of it. Now again, this is a subjective list. All my lists and opinions are inherently subjective. But I'll admit that I sit there and I have 3 giant sets of Zombicide and call it a day. But over Nemesis, I'm like, that game, I only need one of them. But based on the way I table these games, I think I only need one of them. I think Nemesis gives you an excellent experience, and some of it's plug and play, some of it gives you more characters, but a lot of it's more content and more rules and more and more and more on top of a system that I'll play through it, I'll learn it, maybe go through the Untold Stories, that's a fun way to go ahead and experience it, but I don't need to play through all of this stuff, and I don't need to, I just don't think it'll happen. Nemesis is another game that I have all the stuff for it, and I'm happy I have it. This is the thing that's interesting. Even though I will probably limit it to eventually Retaliation, Lockdown, or Base Nemesis, I will probably limit it to one of those, I'll still probably have all the stuff for the one that I have, even though I haven't ever ventured out of the core box of either Nemesis or Retaliation. I have not touched outside the core box, unless you count playing like with the Medic. I think I have played with the Medic. I'd have to double check. I don't know. Well, no, double check. I don't actually track who I play as much as I do track what I play. But anyways, Nemesis over here is another game that I just don't think I'll need all the content for. And then we have Arena of the Contest. This is another one that there were a lot of people who were surprised that it wasn't on my last video. It wasn't a game that I'm totally happy that I have all the content for. And it's because there's so much. And I'll divide this one. I'll subdivide this up into 2 categories. Because Tenaris Adventures, Arena of the Contest, has more characters. And I love having the character variety. I like having the different characters. I like having that. I have benefited from the plug and play. I benefit from being able to just pull into each box and grab whatever characters I want as I add more characters to my roster. I've been going through the entire game on my channel. You can check that out. It is a lot of fun. It is one of my favorite games. And that holds true. But I've played this game for maybe 60, 70 hours by now. And I've utilized one of the pre-painted miniatures. One. You don't need a box full of 30, 20, whatever the total is of pre-painted miniatures when you're not going to experience that content. I think the amount of content in Tenaris Adventures is absolutely overkill. The individual characters, I'm happy I have those. I'm happy I have more heroes. I'll take more. I'll take more. I enjoy and I benefit from that plug and play. I pull new ones in. I get the selection aspect. Those are all fun. And when you go head to head in an arena game against each other, again, having that character variety is good. But some of the extra content for this game, so much of the extra content for this game is stuff that I will never, ever experience. Again, I'm 70 hours plus into this, and I can speak from having played Gloomhaven, that there's a certain point where you tap out on an experience. There's a certain point, and it's going to be different for every game and for every person. But for me, playing through 150 hours of Gloomhaven brought Gloomhaven from my number 3 game of all time last year to a game that I don't even know if it's going to be in my top 100 this year. I genuinely don't know. I haven't actually done my list yet, but I don't know. Because at a certain point, you have that fatigue and that exhaustion of an experience, and I think for me, Tenaris Adventures, the variety of characters I love, the gameplay experience I am still there for. I'm only halfway through my campaign that I'm currently filming on the channel, and I have lots more to go through, and I'm excited to go through it. But I cannot imagine, if 70 hours is what it takes to get to a single pre-painted miniature, I can't imagine I ever benefit fully from it all. The next one is the last command title over here on the list, and that's going to be Project Elite. And this has some degree of plug and play. The stretch goals box, if you get the stretch goals box, that's awesome. I'm happy you do. It's a good thing to have. Adds a lot of content, more monsters, more enemies, more heroes, all those fun things to the experience. Where the game loses me a bit is the fact that there's so many expansions to the game, and I don't think I'll benefit from those expansions. This is not a game I table nearly enough as it is, and so the expansion content, which the big focus of the stuff is the expansion content. So I could have just gone, you know, gotten the base set, gotten the stretch goals, and then maybe gotten that Rook set. Those are fun characters to have. And then everything else I could have and should have left behind. I'm not saying I would have, but I could have and should have left behind. Project Elite is one of those command games where I'm just not benefiting from most of what I have. It has some degree of plug and play, but I'm not benefiting from most of what this game has to offer as much as I enjoy the experience for what it is. Which brings us to our 14th title on this, and our 14th title is another Awakened Realms title, and this is ISS Vanguard. And this is more of a genre of Awakened Realms titles in general that is, I think, guilty is the wrong terminology, but is victim to this kind of conversation, which is any of their giant, epic, sprawling narrative games. This is true of games like Seventh Continent. This is true of games like ISS Vanguard. Oh, also, by the way, I'm not including games that haven't arrived yet either. I didn't want to do that because I'm thinking of Seventh Citadel now. But any games like Tainted Grail, like Seventh Continent, like ISS Vanguard, any giant Aetherfields, any giant narrative game that gives you a ton of content to go through. For some people, you might see all of that. For myself, I don't think I ever will. I think I'll go through it. I'll enjoy it. ISS Vanguard has so much content. I am excited to dive back into it whenever I finally prioritize it above the other games I'm playing. But whenever I do, I'm excited for it. I'm still very much interested in ISS Vanguard. I've had so many good hours playing this game. But I don't think I need all of it. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll fall in love with it enough that I'll want to go through it that much. I certainly heard people say that about Tainted Grail, and it can be true. But the amount of narrative content that these games offer is at a certain point, when you're going through a book, a journey, and you go through an arc of, I don't know, 5 books, 7 books, you know, you're reading through Game of Thrones, which you'll never ever finish, and you're going through that. I think to a certain extent, when you're a passive consumer of the content, more can continue leaping you into the narrative. But when you have to be an active participant in the content, then at that point, the potential grind that the content makes you go through to get to the story, I don't think it works in the same way when you continuously add more content on top of. I think these games are trying to hook you in both the narrative and the mechanics, and the narrative can continue to remain interesting and develop, but unless the mechanics are as well, then one part of the process, one part of the experience is moving forward, while the other is staying static. And that's why I think I end with ISS Vanguard or any of the games in this vein. Loving the games, excited to have them, excited to play them, but not needing all of the content. And that's what we have over here. That is going to be the 14 games of the campaigns that I, again, not regret, but probably shouldn't have gone all in on. If you want to follow, if you want to talk about more about these, if you have questions on which games I'm missing from the list entirely, I saw someone mention Final Girl, like, why isn't Final Girl here? It's plug and play content. And the answer is because I don't love Final Girl. I'm okay with it. It's not a bad game. It's not for me quite as much the same way. And so if you want to talk about which games I'm missing, which games are here, aren't here, if you have any questions, this week's live stream will be devoted to this subject. We'll talk about anything. It's a Q&A. You can ask whatever you want, but I will be focusing on going through comments and talking about the subject as much as possible. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here. Oh, and reminder, check down below if you are interested in Vindication promo cards, check down below. I'm sure I'll be talking about these in other videos for people to have an opportunity to get your hands on them. I have a bunch of them to get rid of, so yeah. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope you have a good one.